Welcome everybody. Let's start with the flag salute. Zoe, could you lead us in this epic evening with the flag salute?
Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you everybody for joining us this evening. It's nice to have a packed house. Many of you may not know, but tonight is my first night leading the meeting, so as I flub my way through it, I hope you'll have patience with me, but it's nice to have you here. Thank you. Please, if you would, turn off your cell phones. Board members and everybody else, the meeting is live streamed on YouTube, so please remember to speak into your microphones. If we have any public speakers, also point your mouth at the speaker at the podium. For the audience, if anybody would like to address the board, please fill out a blue card in back and hand it to Ms. Ornelas. All right. Can we have a report out from closed session?
Yes, on item B6, consideration of certificated leave of absence. The board made a motion to deny the certificated leave of absence request. It was moved by Carolyn Barrett and seconded by Megan Van Sant, and roll call vote 7-0 to deny the leave request. Sorry about that. Thank you. And then on the other leave request, it was moved by Mulgard, seconded by Barrett, to approve a leave of absence request for a classified employee. And it was roll call vote 7-0. That is all.
Thank you. We're on to we're almost on to item C4.
Assistant Superintendent Glenser, could you tell me what happened on this third one? Because there's nothing written.
Okay, we had, this one was, this was classified, voted to approve. This one was classified, voted to approve. Sorry. This one was a certificated.
That's the one that I reported out on first, the certificated to deny.
No.
Yep.
Certificated was to approve as classified listed.
You know what, we'll come back on this after a break. Thank you.
Item C4, approval of the agenda. To revisit the calendar, do we need to change the agenda?
Yeah. So I'd like to move the agenda as presented with the exception of revisiting A7 at the end of the meeting for one change of a board date.
Second.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Great. Before we do student advisory report, do you have?
Yes, I would like to ask Irene Holbrook to come up, please, and our new Personnel Commission Director, soon to be, Marty Arberg, if the two of you could come up for just a moment. I wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge and recognize Irene Holbrook, who has sat in the back of our board meetings, almost all of them, for many, many years. And Irene, 5 years, thank you. But Irene, beyond that, has been a part of this district. She was a student who went through Ukiah Unified and has worked for Ukiah Unified, dedicated herself to Ukiah Unified for the past 33 years.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to say thank you so much for all that you've done for this amazing district. And she's in the process of training her predecessor, Marty Arberg. So we wanted to bring Marty up also and just introduce her. So thank you so much for all that.
All right, moving on to our student advisor, unfortunately is off doing some leadership club stuff this evening, so we will not enjoy his company, but I hope he does well. Public comment for items that are not on the agenda? Thank you. All right, employee organization reports, CSEA.
Good evening, Superintendent and board members. Just a couple of things for you guys tonight. Our CSEA chapter recently donated to the CSEA Emergency Assistance Fund to assist the CSEA members that were affected in the recent campfires. We are very thankful to our Ukiah chapter members who make this donation possible. Our chapter also submitted our Sunshine List for our successor year opener. And we held our first union steward training last month, and we have a second one coming soon. We don't have that date yet, but we will be sending it out as soon as we have it. And lastly, our next regular chapter meeting will be held at the technology office next Thursday, the 20th at 5:15 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. And now UTA.
Good evening, members of the board and superintendent. My name is Jensen Henderson. I'm the secretary of the Ukiah Teachers Association. Teachers and students have been busily working on mandated curriculum, as well as holiday festivities and activities, including performances, decorations, parties, field trips, and other seasonal fun. UTA has sent a resolution and funding to support Oakland Educators Association and United Teachers Los Angeles in their fight for improved salary and benefits and working and learning conditions. California's state retirement system, CalSTRS, will officially stop investing in the for-profit prison industry. The for-profit prison industry companies Core Civic and Geo Group will be removed from Teachers Retirement Fund portfolio. UTA and Willits Teachers Association will be hosting a joint workshop for teachers on student loan debt. We don't have a date for that yet, but we look forward to that in the next couple of months. We are also excited to be sending teachers to both the Good Teaching Conference and the New Educators Conference. UTA thanks the district for their contribution to these great conferences. Teachers are always excited when they return to share with their colleagues and improve their instruction. Our members have turned in logo designs for our UTA logo contest, and we will be choosing a logo to represent us on t-shirts, stationery, caps, and other items. We are very excited to have a new brand and identity. All of our members are looking forward to a well-deserved rest during the holidays, and we wish all of you and yours a loving and happy holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. And our leadership team report this evening will be presented by Chris Sweet.
While he's coming up, I just want to congratulate the teachers on removing the prison complex industry. That is a great accomplishment.
Very exciting.
Hello, thank you for having me up here today, and thank you for everybody for coming to support my school today. I'm just kidding. South Valley has done a pretty, is this too loud? Is it okay? All right, so first of all, Deb has agreed to give the as an admin report, because I think you might have some questions, and so feel free to ask any questions about whatever you have about this transition that we've gone through over this past, well, 2 years, but definitely this year. But let me start off. I gave you all a kind of a packet. There's a lot of information in there. The main part of it is an actual printout of what you're going to see here, because there's a lot of text involved that my staff has worked through, and I wanted you to be able to read that. On top of that is including, there's a flyer in there that we give to the internships and the mentors and things like that, but I'll go through some of those if I have time, but just so you have that. So anyhow, this year was...
Chris,
yes,
before you keep
sure.
going, I told Chris he wanted to report to the board on big picture learning, so usually we have administrators have about 5 minutes. We're giving him a little bit of extra time tonight because it's a new program, so 10 or 15 minutes for this topic.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So first, I want to thank the board members and all the superintendents and the district personnel for supporting what we're doing. We're doing a huge initiative, a huge change. Zoe, you came out, as well as Megan, and Bee came out and saw the school. I had a lot of questions, but I think you walked away with it either more confused, but definitely supporting what we're doing, and so I do highly appreciate that. I also want to thank the staff. A few of them are with me tonight who may be able to help answer any questions you might have. The staff has been unbelievable. We lost 3 teachers last year, 2 of them dear friends of mine to the middle college, which was a great move for them, but in the response to that, we got 3 amazing teachers this year. It's all-star staff. So this year, we finally set off on what I told you I was going to do at the middle of the last year, which is this big picture program. Big Picture's been around for about 30 years. Currently, the number is about 70 schools across the United States, another 40 or 50 internationally, where kids come to school. They're taught through their interest. It's called interest-based learning, and basically what that ultimately results in is kids finding something they're interested in and getting out into the community, finding a mentor, ideally through a mentor internship, and instead of coming to school 5 days a week, they are actually in the community doing what they love, what their passion is. When they're back at home on the ranch, so to speak, at South Valley, they're looking at those projects and those interests, and the teachers are adding the science components, the math components, the English, all that stuff to it to make it a well-rounded education for them. So let me go through this just for a quick moment. This year we branded ourselves, we didn't do a name change, we just named the program. Okay, so it's Big Picture Ukiah, Big Picture Learn Ukiah at South Valley. Just about every kid is a part of that program. Not all of them, for a variety of reasons, internships, independent study, so on and so forth, but we want all kids to be a part of this. I mean, it's something that we just feel strongly about. This is just a representation. Last year we had more graduates than ever. I think the number based on CalPAS was 81 or 82, which is a huge number of kids. It's great. We have a great community, great family atmosphere, but why we are taking this next step is because from the bottom of our hearts, we still feel we were failing our kids, meaning that they were graduating, which was great, but they were getting out into the community, into real life, not having any clue what to do. And I'm talking for my kids specifically, or at South Valley. So we wanted to find some way to give them something that they could they can walk out and say, you know what, I've got a career interest, or I've got some sort of pursuit for college that I know I want to go down that path. And they spent the last 2 years or maybe 1 year with us figuring that out. In 2010, I won't show the video, hopefully it doesn't play on its own, Obama actually made a statement about what's called a Met School out of Rhode Island where this started. It's a big picture program called the Met, and he referenced these big picture schools as being kind of the new wave of what education could be for some, if not all of our kids. In our community now, currently, these are a list of places you can look at them to see what kind of opportunities are being currently pursued by some of our kids. I think our goal this year is to have 50% of our kids in an internship this year. If it's more, great. But these are some of the places that they're looking at. This is these things you see up here on the screen are things that are places that kids are literally about to go into an internship. Working with them Tuesdays and Thursdays instead of coming to our school will be at these locations. Currently, these are where we have kids placed now. Space, Ukiah, currently at the preschool, a barber shop, animal shelter, the Daily Journal, Canova Records, to list a few, Coyote Valley Landscape Projects. We have some really amazing kids doing some really amazing work. I highly recommend that you come out and see what we're doing. So some of the kids, and this is just a few of them, Sylvia is working at Ukiah State Preschool. Please read that through. I just wanted to highlight a couple of our kids. We have 2 kids currently working at Canova Records. They're actually putting on a concert, the 21st, thank you. And so that's what their project is. Somebody's working on stained glass. And actually part of which is one of the techniques is it's really hard to find people who know how to fix stained glass, and he's learning how to do that as kind of like not just learn how to do stained glass, but actually have a skill that can be moved forward. This student, all of our kids are success stories, there's no doubt, but this kid wasn't really sure what to do, and she really wanted to go into photojournalism, so we got her connected with Carol at the Ukiah Daily Journal. He took her under her wing and is now going to be hopefully writing and publishing very soon. We have a kid that is at the college. There's a lot I could say about this kid, but just genuinely speaking, they love him up there. He's kind of what they call him, the backbone of their ag program right now. And he's, I don't know, I mean, we could probably talk about that for a while, but so some kids are at the college doing some pretty amazing work. Jose is actually doing an internship with the fire department. He's on rides, he's out there in the community. I couldn't find one of them in the fire truck. We saw him in the fire truck, we just didn't get the photograph of it. So he'll be graduating really soon and ultimately ending up in the fire science classes at the college and then in the fire program very soon. Some kids work with their families because they want to do what their parents do. And so this student came to us recently, and he's working with his dad at the barbershop, and he's designing his own barbershop with him and learning how to go through that process. The idea behind all of this is to stop the cycle, right? We have a lot of problems with our kids, specifically at South Valley, just coming from extreme poverty. We all know that. There's no question about it. And we want to find something that will kind of vault them into something that is maybe going to help them long term. And the last one, I think this might be the last one. Yeah, the last one is we have a student working at Space who's interning after school almost every day, just about, right? And then there's many more that I could go through, but I just want to highlight those ones. This one you have both on the slides that you have, and I also give you a separate printed one. I just wanted to kind of highlight what we're doing with our school year. It's broken into 4 equal sections, quarters, right? And the first quarter, the kids spend all their time looking at who they are. We go through social and emotional curriculum with them. It's all standards-based approach. In fact, we've done a lot of work with the standards to align everything that we do to them, and I'm not just saying that to like make it sound better, but we are. It's been an amazing amount of work, especially with the work that we're doing with the CAPS in Davis. And then, so the first project that they do is this Who Am I project. They have to present it to a panel of people and talk about who they are. Because a lot of kids, you ask them, what are you interested in? They say, well, you know, Snapchat, video games. No, that doesn't work, right? So we have to find something. A lot of times they don't even know, not off the surface. They have to dig deep. Second quarter at the semester, they're about to go through these in the next, well, actually the 2 weeks we get back from Christmas break. Kids are doing exhibitions. They're going to be bringing forward a whole presentation about what they've been working on as a project, and it's to a whole panel of people, their parents, a community member. Hopefully one of you or all of you will be able to come and see and be on the panel with us. Administrator, their advisor. The advisor is their teachers at a big picture school. So when you see advisor, that's what that means. And then a peer, and then they have to tell the story and what they're doing to this panel, and it's pretty intense, and it's pretty emotional too. And then they'll go through the next 2 quarters on the third quarter, and then at the end of the year, they'll do a final exhibition, and at that point, they should, if they're seniors, graduate. If they're juniors, they will be promoted. And then some of the resources we're doing, just to kind of throw it out there, the School Connect, the one on the far right, is the SEL curriculum that we've adopted for this year because we need to make sure we have a baseline with our kids so they understand who they are, that we know who they are. Basecamp is a project management tool, so a lot of these kids are doing projects, and so we have to have some way to track it, and it's a pretty powerful thing. It's what a lot of nonprofits and corporate institutions use Basecamp to track projects, and so we use it too. We got it free because we're a school. And then Emblaze is the database and the tracking tool for all of our kids and all the community resources when it comes to internships or mentors. So if I'm interested in like auto repair, I can go to Emblaze, look at everything in town that are either either accepting people as interns or just genuinely just interested in looking at that, then they get placed and we can track them. It actually has a GPS tracking device in the phone so we can know exactly where they are at all times. So that was developed out of Big Picture, and that's key to this, making sure we're doing all this. And that's just something that you can, if you feel like looking at some history of where this came from, that's a link you can go to. So, real quick breakdown of some of the things that we're doing, and if you have questions, I can answer them. My staff is here to help me with, because it's so big, generally big, that I have to have a lot of support, and they're amazing. That's it.
I don't have a question, just a comment.
Okay.
Thank you all so much for your incredible work. I'm so excited to see this program soar and seeing the list of kids and where they are. It's really exciting. I can't wait to see how it blossoms and grows. So thank you. It's always hard starting a new program, and you've done a wonderful job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Zoe?
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed learning about the program when we were there. And I can't remember, I know last month we talked a little bit about looking at South Valley and their need for a building that would hold more students. Can you remind me where we left that discussion?
Yes, I think we were bringing something back in January or February. I can't remember which month. We'd have to go back in the minutes, but soon in the,
To look at their needs?
to look at the facilities needs,
Okay,
yes.
great. Thank you.
I don't have a lot of questions because I happened upon a visit to South Valley when you were still kind of had the concept of this idea, and then I did visit recently with Trustee Fernandez. But I'm so thrilled. It is so exciting. Your staff should be so proud. I'm really proud. I'm so proud that we're doing this in our district. And I just think it's really exciting that you all took a risk on a really radical, it's radical program, and you're just doing it quietly without a lot of fanfare, and I think that's really awesome. I'm super excited for the kids. I'm excited for you all, and I appreciate how much extra work I know this must have taken.
Yeah, the teachers will tell you, and I propose that they feel like they're learning how to teach again, and these are veteran teachers.
It's a totally different model,
Yeah.
and I'm just really excited, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the success I know you're going to have.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to say exactly what Megan said and just say what a wonderful job you guys are doing, and it's very exciting, and thanks for all the work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ditto. But, I mean, South Valley has always been a challenge, and it's had some real ups and downs over the years. And it's just very exciting, having been here 40 years in the community, to see it go from what it was to what it has become. And that's all due to new staff coming, assessing what was wrong, working their best, trying to find new solutions, and just struggling with this population. And when I've gone to the graduations, the feeling there of the community in that group is just overwhelming. It's so lovely. And I'm very happy that someone has donated new flowers and pots for the graduation, because they were tacky.
Good? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, moving on to item C9, acceptance of donations. We have, forgot our reading glasses. We have a donation to the Preschool Village Inclusion Program from Ukiah Natural Foods. And we also have another lovely donation from the Ukiah Co-op to Oak Manor. So thank you to those two businesses here in town very much. Do I have a motion to accept the donations?
I move acceptance with gratitude.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, I think this next one might be very popular. On to item D1, approval of the Redwood Academy request for renewal of the Redwood Academy charter petition.
Scott Paulin here to present that.
Thank you. Redwood Academy opened in September of 2000, and it's operated under the terms of its charter since then. The The school board has granted 5-year renewals in 2009, 2014, and 2019. In keeping with board policy, Redwood Academy submitted requests for another 5-year renewal. And as required by law and by the board policy, this item was presented for public hearing at the November 8th Ukiah Unified School District Board meeting. The petition has been reviewed and found to be comprehensive and thorough, and we are recommending approval for another 5-year charter for Redwood Academy.
Oh, thank you. Is there any public comment? Any public comment?
Yeah. I'm here certainly to answer any questions, further questions or concerns the board might have about our petition. I know that there were concerns raised at the public hearing regarding Redwood's racial and ethnic balance. And I want to assure the board that I have gone ahead and revised the petition to accurately reflect what I've reported to Ukiah Unified in our annual reports for the past 4 years. I've also, at the board's suggestion, added new actions in the area of outreach, hoping that these new actions will further mitigate any demographic disparities. We have already begun to work on some of these new actions, so we have placed more print ads in Spanish. We have also consulted with a local community action organization, UVA, to further problem solve our outreach needs. And we have formed, sort of inspired by Trustee Mulgard's comments, we have formed a student-led outreach committee that has met for their first time, and yeah, power to the students, and has started brainstorming ideas. So overall, we feel like this is an opportunity for us to strengthen our marketing strategies and hopefully thereby ensure that all segments of the local population are aware of who we are and what we do. And if there are any further concerns or questions, I am happy to answer them now. But overall, I also want to say, please renew our charter. These hardworking folks, both my staff and students, would really like me to reiterate that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate, I noticed the revision on the charter, and I really appreciate your response to our concerns. So I just wanted to acknowledge that it looks like you have a plan in place, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Trustee Van Zandt.
I actually would like to thank you as well. We live in a time that there's so much division, and anyways, there's lots of division in our country right now, and so anything we can do to help brainwash the next generation that we all are equal and good is extremely important. So thank you for making those changes.
Of course, yeah. They were warranted.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move to recommend approval of Redwood Academy's renewal.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you all are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you'd like.
Please do. Please do.
But don't feel embarrassed if you decide to take off. Thank you for coming.
But we do have some awesome students presenting, so.
While they shuffle out, we'll just take a quick pause here. Okay, that was a great pause. Item D2, Eagle Peak STEM Magnet School Report Update for 2018-19. Katie or
Yes, we're very happy to have a report to the board based on progress, and Mr. Stearns is here, and it looks like he brought some friends with him, so take it away.
I brought some all-stars and can't wait to show off their work. Good evening, board members and superintendent. We're happy and excited to share with you an update about all things STEM at Eagle Peak. And we're going to jump right into enrollment. And if you look at 17-18 and 18-19, you'll see from 16-17 the jump we've had as we've recruited new students. Something funny happened, though, along our STEM journey, which was we were hoping to alleviate some crowding at Pomalita and Frank Zeke. We've actually attracted many students who live in our area but do not attend Ukiah Unified Schools. So if you look at the numbers in your packet, you'll see last year there were 55 kiddos who lived in our community who did not attend Ukiah Unified last year and chose to attend in our first year. And in the second year, the number was 41. So that's significant. That's almost 100 students who live here but did not attend previously in Ukiah Unified. 520 is the current number right now at Eagle Peak. That's the largest the school has ever been. Granted, we do have an extra grade that the school did not have 20 years ago, but we're getting fuller. And it's exciting because people want to come out and have STEM education. So we are growing. This is a little look at the numbers, projected numbers for next year. And you'll see that we have some room, a little more room in the younger grades. In sixth grade next year, there's quite a bit of room because we started off with 70 students from Calpella last year, added 20 more-ish to give us over 90 students, but there's still quite a bit of room in sixth grade for the following year. We've been pretty full this year, actually, and have crammed in a lot of students. And we're starting recruiting in January. Super exciting about that. The budget, as you'll see, is kind of drawing down because you're not implementing forever. So you'll see that progressively the numbers are actually decreasing. Once again, as we said, we're not implementing forever. We did find a little bit of a savings in transportation because we attached some new stops to an existing route. If you recall from a year or two ago, we were talking about lots of extra buses and so on and so forth. It ends up that we were able to attach to what we call the Frank Zeke Express that comes out to Redwood Valley. We were able to attach a stop at Oak Manor and Grace Hudson. And Nokomis, I forget. It's 2 or 3 stops that we added on. We actually have 3 STEM labs. We have the main STEM lab, and then we have a digital media lab, which you'll hear about in a few minutes, and then also a smaller STEM lab that serves 5th and 6th graders. And most of the conversion work is complete at this point. Mr. Reeder is our STEM father. He's like the godfather of STEM, and a lot of the work comes through his class, and I just want to show you a picture of one of our outstanding educators in our school district. He teaches Introduction to STEM and robotics, and then next year we're launching an advanced robotics and engineering class. Back on transportation, on the STEM bus, if you will, formerly known as the Frank Zeke Express, there are approximately 45 students in the morning and 75 in the afternoon, which is up a little bit from last year's numbers. All kinds of field trips taken and planned. All kinds of professional development participated in. But the real exciting stuff is what we're doing in the core classrooms. And the question we get a lot of times is, if I'm enrolled in Eagle Peak, does that mean I do STEM? And the answer is, the best way to explain it, as I've explained previously, it's like going to Chipotle. You can pile on as much as you'd want, or you can just have the basic bean and cheese. And that basic level of STEM education and lessons and learning occurs in the core classes. Because we did something different. The typical secondary model for STEM is STEM occurs in the elective classes. You would take a robotics class. You would take a machining class. And so as we were, as you recall, trying to also keep a robust music program going, and I am happy to report that close to 200 students every week have music at Eagle Peak. 100 every day in instrumental music, and then about 100 of our fifth graders once a week have music. So music is very robust. However, in trying to transform into a STEM school and still do music, we realize, oh, okay, so if a kid's in music, they'll still need the STEM portion. So once again, we'll put that in the core classes, in the language arts, in the science, in the social studies, and the mathematics. And here's a bit of a list of some of the work that we've done. And actually, I'm going to invite up one of our teachers to talk a little bit about our journey implementing STEM in the core classes. And if you remember our colleague Jenny DeVinny, principal at Oak Manor, this is Jenny's daughter-in-law Liz, who's one of our all-star STEM teachers, who teaches digital media, advanced digital media, and a language arts honors class. And she's going to talk a little bit about kind of, once again, implementing STEM in the core.
Hello, board, superintendent. It's nice to see you all this evening. So I teach language arts, and last year when we had our TOSA time, I was much more heavy in teaching language arts and in developing our curriculum that we have for 7th grade. This year I only have honors language arts since we're really building digital media as well, and so I've kind of shifted into that arena, but I still have a really strong language arts class that I'm teaching. And so in second quarter, we work through The Martian. So the students in my language arts class read the classroom edition of The Martian. And as they've done that, we've done some different projects and even building on projects from quarter one. So as you can see up here, one of our projects was Design for a Better World. So in alignment with Pomalita, our students read My Name Is Not Easy during quarter one, which is a study about Alaska Native cultures. And so as part of that assignment, they learned a lot about the geography of Alaska. And one of the things that we've learned is, happening with climate change around our world is that the Alaska geography is changing dramatically. And so our students had the opportunity to do a project-based learning where they were trying to tackle some of the challenges of climate change and the effects of. So we spent some time studying different biomes in language arts and talking about tundra taiga biomes, and then talking about what effect climate change is not only having on Alaska, but also on our whole world. So they did a couple of VR activities in our classroom where they had a look at the effects that climate change is having around the world. And then in groups, they got together and had to design some kind of project or technology that would potentially help solve either climate change as we know it or the effects of. And so some of our students were really moved by looking at drought and the effects of drought, especially in areas of Somalia. And we have a student group here that's going to talk a little bit about one of the designs that they created in our Design for a Better World challenge that actually moved from our language arts class into a G4 science project class that they're doing, G4 science project that they're doing in science classes in quarter two, and ultimately will move into science fair. So in language arts, we're really, we're going from projects like Design for a Better World into our G4 Summit, into reading The Martian and writing an argumentative essay on whether humans should or should not colonize Mars, and doing that research and looking at what it would actually take to get there. So if you guys would like to come up, we have 3 really awesome students that are going to talk about their Design for a Better World project. So this is Austin and Forrest and Nick. So welcome. Sorry.
Yeah. All right, so I'm Austin, this is Nick, and this is Forrest, and this all kind of really started from the Design for a Better World project. And we had this idea, or not really had this idea, Forrest saw this thing of a water bottle that created water. And we basically took that idea and were like, hey, that's a pretty good idea because that can reduce a bunch of water bottles and plastic in the world and stuff, and also create water. And later on, after we did the Design for a Better World project, the G4 science project thing came along, and the theme for 7th grade was water, and like, hey, that's an awesome thing, because we basically have like a whole plan set up. And we found out that it was a scam, and then Forrest, again, found a video of how we can build basically what we had on a larger scale, which is like this. And yeah, that's it.
I'm Nick, and I'm going to go through the steps on how we built it. First, to start off, each of us got like materials. Each of us got materials for us to build it. I got the PVC, the tin foil, the tray, and all that. Forrest got the pump and the ice chest. And Austin got all the tubing. And so the first thing that we did is that we curled a can around we curled the tubing, the copper tubing around a can to make it easier. Then we put the clear tubing onto the pump, which was harder than we thought. It took actually like about 30 minutes. We used a blow dryer to make it heat up so it'll expand more. Then we used the clamps to clamp the clear tubing onto the copper pipe. We jabbed a few holes in the cooler with a screwdriver. And we stuck the tubing in and filled the ice chest with water and ice cubes and turned the pump on and watched it go. After about 15 minutes, then we got our first drop and we were all really excited. And here's Forrest.
Forrest and our data. We did the first test after we built it. We left it at Nick's house overnight, and he got, I believe, 3.5 teaspoons of water overnight due to evaporation and them having a fire. And, well, not a fireplace, sorry.
Not a fireplace. House fire. We understand.
Then later in the week, Austin got it, and he ran it over, and what did he get? He got 1 teaspoon from, I believe the AC took all the moisture out of the air. Then my turn, we brought it, put it in our bathroom, my bathroom, and next morning I took a shower, then 2 showers, and I got half a cup of water. And we've now on to our typing stage, which, yeah, fun stuff.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
So, can you tell me more? I don't even understand exactly what it is. A pump turns on and...
Oh, so, in here we have a pump that can go from 80 to 300
and what is
gallons.
it putting through the tubes?
We have cold water, but we just have ice in there right now. But it would go through one of the tubes, curl on the copper tubing, cooling the tubes, and then the humid air would condense on it and then drop into the pan. And then the air would flow out from the other side back in to be recycled over and over again.
Wow, it's awesome.
Thank you, guys.
So just to tie that back together for you real quick. So when we were doing the Design for a Better World Challenge, they looked at how to potentially help create water using the atmosphere. So using what they have here, they've created a science project that started in just a think tank and in our classroom in language arts, moving from there into their science project. So this has been a 4 or 5 month science project, and they started with the ideas before we even got to the science fair level of project. So that kind of integration between our core classes has been one of the highlights of our STEM program at Eagle Peak.
And once again, that started in language arts is awesome. And you can still do character analysis in working with The Martian, right, a literature text, it's just a STEM-themed book. So anyways, and it's also part of one of our goals to be very project-based. This is an overview of our quarterly interdisciplinary units, and once again, in second quarter, the G4 is our version of science, of our version of the science project and science fair, and the whole point and rationale behind it is we're trying, within our projects and experiments, trying to add contributions to solving some of the great challenges in our society, technological challenges, environmental challenges, et cetera. So the goal is that all 520 students will participate in science fair projects, which is a massive undertaking, I must say, and awesome, and some of the best work that we've done. So real quickly, Forrest and Austin, they've gone to the STEM Chipotle restaurant, and they've piled on as much as they can. So obviously, STEM in the core. Then they're in the robotics elective with Mr. Reeder, and then also in our boost time, which is a time for intervention and enrichment, they're in a science Olympiad boost. So they are STEMaholics, basically. Nick is wanted to do something different. You're in the robotics elective, correct? But in his boost, he's in a leadership class. So he's able to take a slightly different pathway and look at different options. So that's another part that we've valued in implementing STEM, is there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how much STEM you would like. And speaking of which, here's our elective pathways. We have a music pathway. We have essentially a STEAM pathway with digital media, because you really combine the artistic elements. And then there's the engineering and robotics pathway. And we have Stephanie Muniz, who's part of the Muniz dynasty. There's lots of Muniz kids, and they are awesome. There are hundreds and lots of cousins, and they've done incredible work for years in our school district. And she's going to talk very briefly about her digital media project, which is behind me. And you can't quite see the artistic elements unless you get really close. So I would encourage you to do that a little bit later. And Stephanie, if you could tell us a little bit about your project.
Okay. I'm a 7th grader at Eagle Peak, and this year I was lucky enough to be chosen to have digital media as my elective. Earlier this year, we had to create what is called a double exposure image, which consists of getting 2 images either on the internet or having a picture you have already taken of, and one by a student taking a picture of you and having both uploaded to a website that I find very helpful in all of my editing and creating. It's called Pixlr. It's a great website, and I love it, and it helps me very much in creating all of my images and photos. And what we had to do was get 2 of the pictures and make them parallel and become one single image. And that really helped me. It was, at the beginning, I did believe that it would be very hard and difficult, but with the help of my lovely and amazing teacher, Mr. Vinny, it became very simple and very easy, and now it's a great skill to have digital media and photography in my skill set. Yeah, so I'm very grateful for that.
So in case you didn't catch that, she took this picture, the background image, the image of the train tracks, which I believe is somewhere near her house. And then another student in the class took a picture of her, and then she did all the editing work to combine those 2 images together. And this is one of the ones that was featured at the Ukiah Art Walk. We had a big, all of my students had work that they displayed at the Art Walk that was November 1st. And so I just thought you guys might want to see, if you weren't able to make it out, some of the incredible work that our students are doing that is absolutely beautiful. I'm so proud of them. Thank you so much for your support of my program. I really have enjoyed working with our students.
Sorry, we've gone a little bit long here. I'll try to close things up soon. Some of our areas of strength, as you just heard and you're about to see, is our digital media and robotics curricula. Staff's very enthusiastic. STEM lab conversions have gone very smoothly, and want to thank Gabe and his team for all of their work. Let's see here. The second to last point, engagement of at-risk students through STEM activities. To me, that's one of the really inspirational parts of all of this, is that the high engagement activities help mitigate some of the challenging behaviors that we see in middle school. Also, these activities we find are very accessible to kids with IEPs, including some kids who are in our autism program and so on and so forth. The boost time is also proven invaluable to us, and we do a ton in boost. ELD, math intervention, reading support, science Olympiad, leadership, web. It's a 30-minute thread in our master schedule. Plans for next year. We have some work to do in increasing STEM integration within 5th grade core curricula. We talked a little bit tonight about 6th through 8th. Still ongoing work forever really on our cross-curricular units and projects and themes. Continue to recruit UUSD students at some crowded schools. Supporting our special education students in all these projects. The vertical alignment piece we think is important, as 3 of our board members, Gail, Zoe, and Carolyn, were on campus the other day. You saw a kid working at the circuit board level, and so as a 7th grader. So we've moved beyond playing around with websites, and we're at the electronic level and the circuit board level. We're getting underneath the hood. And so these kids are going to have just this incredible skill set, and so sort of begs the question, as they matriculate up to the high school, how can we continue to provide programs and opportunities for them to just build off their skills? I mean, these kids are going to be solving awesome problems and challenges in our world, and so we want to keep on supporting their movement through STEM programs, electives, et cetera. Finally, we have a lot of work. One of the big STEM threads is sustainability and alternative energy, and so that's a goal for us for next year, is just to look at becoming a greener school. There are green schools that exist in the state of California that pride themselves on zero waste, sustainable practices, and so that's something that we're kind of looking into as well. It's been awesome. I want to thank you for your financial support, your overall support to the program. It's some of the best work I've ever been a part of. The teamwork has been awesome, and the work that the kids that are doing, as you're seeing, that are coming by, is just totally inspirational. It's award-winning. The yearbook has won multiple national awards. When I look at a Jostens yearbook catalog that features 6 prominent schools in our country, Harvard, Stanford, and Eagle Peak, our kiddos featured in the Jostens yearbook for incredible design. And I mean, it's every day is a joy to see the amazing work. So again, thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
This is wonderful. You already anticipated my question about kids with autism. And how are you managing that? Are you inviting them just as they are able to participate in different classes, or?
So we provide a lot of scaffolding on the projects, and so for example, for some students, we'll put them in a team of 2 or 3 and assign a para to help them out, and often bringing the materials to school to help them with their projects. Many of the students with autism, even severe autism, actually have a lot of technological aptitudes. They are amazingly talented, so it's actually it's more of a matter of just finding some time to get them going on projects. And as an example, we did a rocketry test drive where we were launching some rockets, and The best flight was from 2 students in our severely handicapped program who worked together and launched the best rocket. And we did, by the way, have approval from our risk management department and Redwood Valley Fire.
I was going to say Redwood Valley
before we
Fire,
launch
I bet.
rockets.
Yeah, that's great.
And we'll be launching more in the spring. And anyways, you know, to get kids off their phones and actually building models. I mean, Tyler, remember when we were kids? We built stuff, and we made stuff, and we banged nails, and we built models. And so to be able to go back to those engineering practices is awesome, moving away from screens. Yes, we do need screens at times, but moving to more three-dimensional type of work. And once again, as our 3 board members saw, work at the circuit board level as well.
Are you, how are you working with Ukiah High to make sure that these kids don't get bored their first 2 science classes that they arrive at Ukiah High because they already know everything? For example, you know, my child took an entire year of photography, and I don't know, hi Zane, I don't know if he could have produced this. And he was a senior in high school when he took a whole year of photography. So yeah, I'm just concerned about the articulation because we don't want to be boring kids to death.
Yes, your question is the answer. The answer is we have to articulate. And serendipitously, Mr. Pollan has actually just set up our first meeting right after the holiday to bring the high school and middle schools together. It's actually some great STEM projects, of course, happening at Pomalita as well, and working on the 6-8, 5-8 articulation. And so that's our next task. And you're absolutely right. Awesome set of skills. We have to continue to build off of those in the 9th grade year as kids matriculate to Ukiah High School.
And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is some of us will probably be sharing materials from the solar people who were at the CSBA conference, and they're always pushing it. And their big thing was, if you've got land that's not being used, that's where we want to put our solar array. And so we all thought of you.
Yes, we have land that's not being used, and we would love to pilot any sort of energy-saving solar projects at Eagle Peak. We'd be happy to do that, for sure. It would fit perfectly.
Carolyn?
I just wanted to thank you for bringing the students. It's always nice for us to get to see some of their projects. And the visit to your school was great. I was very impressed with what's going on. I think the classes that we visited were really fun to see, and fun to see the kids working at this level.
Thank you.
Gail?
I just want to thank the students for coming as well, and I love the way you shared everything so gracefully, and I like your cooperation on the project. I think, to me, the most important thing about this program is the research shows that if young girls are not initiated in some kind of STEM program, that's one of the major reasons that they do not go on to science and engineering. So to me, it's so exciting that this is just, it's not something you have to, it's just there and you do it. And I think it deserves to be recognized as a school of honor. Thank you.
Thank you. I totally agree. As we know, women are underrepresented in engineering fields, and so this is our answer, and this is our access. So great point. I fully agree. Thank you.
She can hang on a sec. Where do I start? I'm so glad that the students came. You guys were, it was really nice to hear what's going on. This is a huge investment from the district, and it is, I kind of can breathe a little bit deeper seeing the successes that are going on. It's really, all the work that's gone into it looks like it's paying off. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Tyler.
And then it's so nice to see that the amount of money that you need from the district is going down.
Yes.
The budget conversations are coming up more and more, and so that is also another place that we can breathe a little deeper. So thanks.
Yes.
Zoe?
I would love to see the yearbook at the end of the year if you have a chance. I didn't realize it was featured like that. That is really impressive. And if there's an extra one in June, if we could just look at it or look at the school's copy.
Yes, we'll send some by, but you have to download an app because it's not just a yearbook. With this yearbook and an app, you're able to scan in different pages and triggers that allow you to see whole videos and projects on your phone that just bring the yearbook to life. And that's other continuing work that Ms. Devaney and her kids do in digital media. So we'll definitely bring those by. Yeah.
Thank you.
Gail, are you good?
I'm sorry.
Again, you guys, thank you so much. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I know I'm not a board member, but I just wanted to thank you, Dan, and the staff for everything that you do. I know we have a bunch of parents in the audience, too. It's nice to see you here. Thank you for your support of your kids. We were putting our Christmas tree lights on the other day, and mine weren't working. Only part of them were working. And my son was explaining to me that there was a block in the electrical something or other.
Sure.
And I was like, wow, how does he know that? And I think he learned it at Eagle Peak. So.
All right. Oh, sorry, B.
I'm just so proud of Eagle Peak. You guys have worked so hard and done such a wonderful job. And it's been many years of a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. The community does it. It's so successful so far. I feel so proud. But not what I did, what you guys have done. You've really met the task and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, B. Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. Now go home and finish homework. Yeah. Board members, we need to take a 5-minute break so I can take a 5-minute break.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to get going on the meeting. Deb, please.
I'm reporting out from closed session with accurate information regarding the leave request of a classified employee. It was moved and seconded and approved with roll call vote on a classified employee, number one. And then an additional classified on a certificated employee. It was moved and seconded to approve a leave request of a classified or certificated employee. Roll call vote, all voted to approve. And regarding another classified employee, it was moved and seconded to deny the leave request of a classified employee. Roll call vote 7-0.
Thank you. All right. Let's move on to a real easy discussion, D3. Discussion regarding type and keyboard instruction. At our last meeting, I asked that that you guys let me put this on the agenda. You agreed to it. We agreed to like 10 minutes, so we have 10 minutes-ish, more if we need it, but I'm hoping to keep it down to a lower amount of time. I'd like to break the discussion into two main parts. The first part is, do we want the district to spend time on trying to come up with a typing plan for all the kids that will not be receiving instruction, so junior highs and high schools? So that would be the first discussion. Do we want the district to spend time formulating a plan? And then the second part of it is, if that is something that you guys agree to, the second part would be, what are the goals for the plan that we want them to design? Did I get that right, Zoe?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what you're thinking. So
What-
I don't know.
Did I get that right, the breaking it into two parts?
I think the first question is, does the board want, so we shared the elementary typing plan with you last year. We're in the process of getting a report to the board on how that's going and what the goals are. I think the concern is that We have some students who did not receive typing instruction in our they're currently secondary students. And I think the question is, do we want to spend staff time on figuring out a systematic approach to filling those gaps? Or do we want to, if so, we should probably form a committee. And if it's not a systematic thing, it's more of an offering in an after-school program, the board could just give us direction and we can do that. So I think there are three components. Do we want to spend any time at all on that or funds? That's the first question. If so, how do you want to go about it? Is it systematic? We're going to deliver it during the school day for every secondary student? And then if it's not systematic, does the board have interest in having us set up some before and after school types of typing programs, pay some teachers to do that?
Thank you. That's what I was trying to say. B.
So this that we have on my iPad here, we're doing that.
Currently, we have the program
First
that.
through fifth.
That's correct.
Okay, I liked it. Yeah, I like that. I think that's really good. My next, so I'm good with that. I think we should and need to do that, and I see we're doing that. Secondly, are the middle school and high school teachers and/or administration feel that the middle and high school kids are lacking and needed? That's my question.
When I brought this to the board, part of the feedback that we heard at the meeting is we are, in all fairness to the district, everybody's busy doing everything.
Right.
So we don't have any information. The reason why I brought this up is I've obviously feel pretty passionate about it. I'm not sure, I don't feel good about sending the kids that aren't receiving typing instruction out into the wild to go work or go to college or carry on with their lives when personally, for me, it's an important topic. And so that actually your question brings up another good point. Is this something that, is it important enough for us to say, hey, district, go out and do this?
Right.
Do we want to take that step? Zoe?
Assuming that this is happening at the elementary, that would be lovely. It would mean that those kids in, elementary will be, as they go up through the grades, will know how to type. So hopefully this is happening. I am not interested in systematically having the junior high and high schools do typing. I think there's a lot of variables there, and I wouldn't support that. I would support something that's a little less intrusive and that is not mandatory, like after-school typing or something that is not tied to metrics necessarily, but that is optional for kids or families who want to learn typing. But I personally don't want to change things so that they have to do typing in the middle school and high school.
Megan?
I'd like to ask Deb to answer B's question, since B did raise, you might be in a better position to understand whether this is a concern of junior high and high school faculty.
We haven't polled the staff. We haven't talked to the administrators about it formally. We have not polled the staff. We were not supposed to prepare anything for this meeting, so we haven't. So that's the answer.
Just to answer that question without having any hard data, this is something that I think most of you guys have heard me talk about it once or twice. In talking with my kids' teachers from elementary school through junior high and high school, I have yet to find a teacher that doesn't think it's important. It's the time. There hasn't been a single one that has said, oh yeah, this is something I think that the fifth graders ought to do. This is something I think we ought to do in junior high school. Everybody, their big concern is, hey, where are we going to find the time to do it? Because they feel so overwhelmed with everything else. But that's just not true data. That's just from me pestering teachers. Oh, Ann, sorry.
It's all right. In what year did we start this 1 through 5 keyboarding guidelines?
This year.
This year?
Mhm.
Okay. So we don't really know that the 5th grade is going to reach 25 words per minute if they haven't had it before.
I'll just say though, Anne, I mean, this is just the systematic approach. We have had teachers across the district having kids on typing programs. Calpella is an example. I know the 4th grade teachers there have for several years had the kids on typing programs. So it just wasn't systematic in the district. And this is our systematic approach.
You know, this is so tough because it's one that I actually want to kick back to parents because they have Chromebooks. I don't think you could. Like, I certainly took a summer school class in typing and a summer school class in sewing because I wasn't going to learn it from anywhere else. But, you know, now everybody has a Chromebook and they have typing.com. But how we get, if we can't get parents to read to their kids 20 minutes a day from birth until, you know, 8 or 9 when they kick you out of their bed because they're sick of you reading to them. If we can't get them to do that, I don't know how realistic it is to say, oh, every 5th grader after 5th grade, your summer job, you know, or your summer skill that you're going to learn is typing 30 words a minute or whatever it might be. I don't know how realistic that is. And I guess what I'm wondering is 2 things. What does the data say about how much this affects our performance on tests that require typing for the state? Because that's kind of something that will reinforce itself with teachers. If one of the reasons we're seeing so many red and orange on our dashboard is because we can't type, well, that's a pretty clear thing that we should fix, because maybe we don't have to fix the teaching or the content, maybe we just have to fix how kids are taking the test. So I would want to see some data on that. And then I'm also interested in, you know, one researcher spending 5 hours on what are other districts doing? Who else has had this problem? And how have they solved it? Because there's probably, this is a nationwide problem. Everybody has this problem. There's got to be good solutions out there. So I would be interested in just taking a step to see what else, how important is it? And what else is everybody else doing? So I'm not committing to anything more, but I would be in favor of that much.
Carolyn?
I appreciate your ideas, Ann. I think they're good, and I think this K-5 is a good first step. I hope we can feel confident at the end of the year that this has happened, that teachers are doing this, because I do think it's important. However, and I'm sure there are ideas out there, like Ann said, ways to accomplish this, but I agree with Zoe. I'm not interested in telling middle schools or high school that they've got to do something about this other than after school or in summer school. I think those kids who are in the gap and have missed out, that's how, either on their own, after school, or in summer school is how they're going to have to catch up.
Gail?
Yeah, I agree with the 2 previous speakers. My concern about summer school is it would be an increased cost, and we're already looking at cutting the budget. And secondly, it would be, unless you provided busing to all those kids, you would then have the issue of only the kids who can get rides home or something would have the availability. I don't know what other opportunities there are in the community. Like Ann, you took it at the YWCA or something in the summer. Or if you didn't do well at that, like I didn't, you paid someone to type your papers in college, which was a very
Which is how I made a lot of money.
I should have sent mine to you. And I just don't think it's realistic to expect that you can require it in middle school and in high school. I don't see how that would work unless somebody could prove that. But if we have the Hanover Research Group, could we not use them to research other districts and how they're I mean, because I agree, this is has to be a nationwide problem, and I don't know, I've never heard, I don't have children in high school now, and so I don't know how I haven't heard anything about what other schools are doing.
Gail, we have a certain number of projects that they can do for the year,
Okay.
and we have them focusing on early literacy, math, and discipline and suspensions.
Is that because of the limit, because of the specific amount of money that we've allocated for that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, if this is an issue, would it be worthwhile if it was going to cost another $5,000 to have them do it rather than take up staff time when they're already working on other things? Is that an option or possibility?
If the board gives us direct, I could ask them. I mean, they've got a full, they're pretty systematic in their implementation of our projects. We're working through the literacy one right now. So I'd want to know if they have somebody who could add. But
Okay.
the board could allocate funds to do that.
What? That might be a good next step, just to either get a quote or say, we're going to comp this because it's really only going to take us 2 hours because this is what we do for a living.
Megan?
I feel like we're missing an important piece of information, and I totally appreciate, and now I'm remembering that we told you not to do any work on this. But not knowing what the teachers think about this is a problem, I think, for us in figuring out how to proceed. So I'm torn because I'm really mindful of adding more to, more things to do on a really heavy workload already, but I'm not sure how to proceed. I don't want to assume that I have a clear idea of the scope of the problem at middle school and high school, because I really don't. I actually have no idea. So I don't know how to proceed without that information, and I don't know how to balance trying to limit the amount of extra work we do. So do you have any ideas on how to efficiently, without a lot of work, get the information we might need to decide what to do?
Can I address that?
I know, I'd actually like to ask Superintendent Cubic.
Oh.
Thanks.
Oh, gosh, I don't know. We could poll the staff, we could have a conversation with the principals. I think really this is just my opinion. So we could poll them, yeah.
That was not very enthusiastic, sorry.
I'm just really conscious of how much work is on the staff, and that's all. It's just another project on an already overflowing bucket. So we could poll the secondary teachers and ask them if, A, they think it's a problem. We should probably ask them,
If
what
so, what's the
evidence they
solution?
have, and then what ideas do they have. So we could ask them for solutions and ideas.
I am a firm believer in Survey Monkey. I mean, that's literally
That's
3
what we
questions.
use.
It would have been, okay, because it's only 3 questions, and you can even say estimated time to completion less than 5 minutes, because that always makes people open.
So let me recap some of the things that I heard. The first part that we wanted to poll you guys on was, do we want staff to spend any time doing this, or should we just let typing rest? And it sounded like it was pretty much everybody thought typing was important, but there were different ideas. Having something, Zoe said, I don't want it to be mandatory in every classroom. I think Carolyn and Gail also said that, but generally, am I correct that the board thinks that typing is important? Or am I missing that?
Well, I think typing is important. I mean, I don't think the question was about whether it was important or not. It was,
It's about,
for me, that's not the question.
it's about if the board would like staff to spend time on, and it's mostly in the secondary schools. I mean, we've got our elementary plan laid out. We just need to report to the board on it. So it's more about, does the board want staff to spend time researching, including, it could include a survey about, and it's not about whether or not the staff thinks it's important. I think we all think that keyboarding is important. It's just a matter of priority of time. I think that's the question is, does the board want staff to spend time researching and potentially even forming a committee to look at how to systematically implement typing in the secondary schools?
I mean, I'll just go back to, I can't know whether there's a need to systematically implement typing if I don't know whether there's a problem. Right. And so that's where I'm stumbling. I mean, I think the reason we keep spending time on this topic is we look at a variety of metrics. We can see our test scores and we're like, huh, there might be a problem there. We can see some of our discipline data and we're like, oh, maybe there's a problem there. We don't have any measure here to know whether there's a problem or not. Right. We have our own experience perhaps with our own children or grandchildren, which is a terrible way to make decisions. Yep. So I think that's where for me, that's where I'm a little stuck.
I mean, I think Ann's point is, it really would be important, and I don't know how you find that out without a lot of time, is not having good typing skills reflected in test scores. You know, if you're doing a writing sample and you're typing 2 words a minute, you can't quite get to the end of the paragraph. You know, I mean, those are important questions to me, and because this is a whole new area. So I don't know how you find out that answer.
B?
I would just like to know what the middle school and high school teachers feel about that. First, I'm sure all of them would say yes. It would be great to have these kids know how to type and how to do it. So that's okay. That doesn't mean I want to do anything else. The second thing is, do you think, sort of ask them, so are you willing to give up some time to do it? And that's it. I mean, just sort of get a sense of how important do they think. The how important means that it would take time for you guys to come up with a system as well as them to implement it. And that's a whole other number, as opposed to, at least we're starting off in a good way, I think, finally, with the K through 5th. You know, I mean, and I don't think it's necessary to put middle school and high school on a track like that. I mean, unless they're really feeling, yes, there's an issue. And if they are, then we can look at what Gail and Ann are saying, is that really significant? Because when you start asking about significant stuff like that, that's a much bigger issue and a lot more time that's going to be taken. And it's like Gail said, you know, how do you go around doing that? Well, it's very time consuming, and you guys have enough to do with what you're doing. So I just want something minimal to see if we even need to think more other than what we're doing now, which I think is good.
Okay, so I just want to say to the predecessors that were in the chair position, you guys made this look way easier than it is. So I should have had more coaching. Zoe, do you have something great to say?
No, I was going to say that, to be fair, at the meeting when we talked about this 2 meetings ago, and we talked about bringing it back, and Deb said, if we bring it back, I should be prepared with something. And we said, no, don't bring anything, just talk about it. And she said, well, then what are we going to talk about? Because we won't have any information.
Pretty much what's happening.
And so it feels like that's what we're doing, and we're sort of saying, well, we don't have any information, but yet we told her not to. So we're sort of spinning our wheels once again on this conversation, it feels like, not really going anywhere. And it feels like we've been here before.
So I guess let me go back to the very first question, which I didn't do a real good job articulating. Do we want the district to spend time on examining what options are for typing for older kids, or do we not want that?
That's a big question.
So I guess my answer would be no. But what I would be interested in is understanding the scope of the problem from the people who are with these children all day long and should know way better than us whether this is actually a barrier to learning. So the question to me is not, is typing important? It's, is typing skills a barrier to learning for you in your classroom right now? That's, to me, the question.
And to that, I would add a barrier to learning and a barrier to
tester-
successful
right.
test
A
taking.
barrier to achievement.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the question, not whether we think it's important or not. Nobody's going to say, very few people are going to say typing's not important, although there is a principal who thinks it's not important. So it's sort of interesting. There is some, maybe, but most people think it's important. The question is whether it's a barrier to achievement. And I don't think any of us at this dais are in a position to know the answer to that question. I do also just want to acknowledge that when we did bring this, we began this discussion a year ago, and we were like, typing's really important. I really want to acknowledge that the district, this plan they have is really great. And it has metrics in it, and it's, you know, and I'm looking forward to hearing when the fifth graders do their 1-minute test, what the average words per minute are. And, you know, we are missing some information that could make us feel really good about this, or could make us be really clear that we have a major problem. And so I don't think we can proceed without a little bit of work on the part of the district, but not exactly what you're describing.
Then describe it for me, because I keep doing a poor job of
We need to know whether our faculty at the junior high and high school level believe that keyboarding skills in their current state are a barrier to achievement. That's what I need to know.
And I guess I would look for a consensus from the board, since this is for direction to staff, because this is not a board action item, is given that wording that Trustee Van Sant just expressed, I would encourage the board to direct staff to do a less than 10-sentence survey monkey to all pertinent staff and teachers, if that's middle and high or whatever.
How much time should we spend?
I would say 2 people, because you always want to read it to each other. I would say literally no more than 1 hour.
That's all. That's all
30
staff
minutes
time.
for 2 people to put together the survey and hit send. And then I would say it's probably 4 hours of one person to pull the data together, interpret it, turn it into a little, you know, something that can be shared and send it out with the TGIF. And 4 is probably an exaggeration. It can probably be less than that. And then I would also see if there's consensus to ask the superintendent to ask Hanover, how much would it cost to do that? So that's 1 phone call by the superintendent. And then, you know, she can report back in a TGIF, and we can decide at the next meeting if it's worth $500, great. If it's worth $5,000, great, but we'll make that decision then. I don't even want us right now to get into a big thing about, well, if they say $250 and then you say this, and then, because that'll just,
And Ann, how much would it cost to do it? Is that the research on what other districts are doing related to keyboarding?
Exactly.
Is that the it?
What are the solutions that other people have come up with? I would love the research as well on how important is it, but I don't think that exists.
Is that a reasonable ask, or is it crazy?
No, we could do that.
But I think, you know, when Megan says, is it affecting students' achievement? Students can be achieving even though they're not typing. I thought what Ann was talking about was if the assessment of your achievement involves typing, and not having typing diminishes your ability to perform on that test, then that's the information that I think we need to get at.
Is everybody on board with Megan's suggestion on how to ask the question?
So I guess the question that I'm hoping that would be answered is, are typing skills or lack thereof at the middle school and high school level a barrier to achievement in either learning or standardized tests or both?
That's okay.
Well, they'll figure out how to phrase
Yeah.
it.
It's not exactly like.
Yeah, that's the point.
Well, they're professionals, they'll figure it out. Yeah.
And the only thing that I would like to add to that is, every time that I've spoken to Zoe about this, she feels that I'm implying it should be a systematic approach. I think that if there could be a description that we don't know, we're just curious what you think. how it forms, whether it's summer school. This doesn't necessarily mean we'd have a systematic approach.
Yeah, I think with this question that we're asking is just trying to figure out, is there a problem?
Yeah. Yes.
And then depending on what it says, right.
I don't think there is support for a systematic approach, correct?
Pardon?
I don't think there is support from the board for a systematic approach.
It doesn't feel like it to me.
Unless the research comes from them, says this is an enormous problem, please make us teach typing all day long, then yeah, we would say, yes, this is a problem.
And you better do better next year.
All right, you guys, thank you for helping me stumble through a difficult one for me. Katie?
And Tyler, one more
Yes.
thing. Katie just sent me an email, not that I'm checking my email during the meeting. Hanover actually does have a study, research study on keyboarding, so we'll be happy to send that out in the TGIF.
Oh, see?
Deb, they also have a transitioning to computer-based standardized testing that have some other information, so we can look at both of those.
Thank you, Katie. I
Ask
have
and
some
you shall
interesting
receive.
reading tonight. On that note, let's move on so we can get out of here at a reasonable time. Item D4, pardon me, California School Dashboard update from Katie.
So we are going to spend 10 minutes on this, and somebody can be the timekeeper. Our goal with this, we're going to go deeper into our data in January, but we want to give you some tools to play around at home related to the California dashboard. So Katie's not going to review all of the dashboard measures. She's just going to show you where to go so you can poke around in the dashboard and look at some of our results. And then in January, when we start looking at our data more closely, we will do more. And remember, this is last year's data, so this is post-mortem data, basically, based on last year. So it's old.
Good evening. As Deb said, she's going to keep me under time frame because sometimes I ramble on about all this data. So one way for you to access the information around the California School Dashboard is to go to this website if you just type in California Dashboard System of Support. And there are two links here that give you similar information just in different formats. The first one is the public dashboard, which came out publicly on December 6th. And like Deb said, it contains data from the 17-18 school year and basically comparing it to the 16-17 school year. So if you click on that link, you get to the California School Dashboard. And if I could spell Ukiah, that'd be helpful.
By the way, we don't have pi anymore. We have a speedometer. So we've moved away from the pi.
If you type in Ukiah Unified and then click on the fourth one down. So the dashboard, as Deb said, now last year had pi, now we have these gauges. The color scheme is the same. And so when we look at our overall dashboard, you can see we're orange in chronic absenteeism, orange in suspension rates. Our graduation rate is green, which is good. This one we did not have last year because we didn't have 2 years of comparison data, and that's our college and career. Currently in our district, we have 39.1% of our students college and career ready, which was an increase from the year before, so we're really excited about that, and we'll go into more detail on that later because it's interesting to look at, to share some great successes there. English language arts, we're in the orange. Math overall for the whole district in the orange. And then you can see these are the local metrics that we measure ourselves, and those we've met all those standards. And I think I shared that in November.
And I'll just say exciting is we have no red on our main page. When you dig into our data a little deeper, we have some red in our subgroups, but we used to have some red on our main page, some red pie on our main last year. So that's good.
Yeah. And when we look at it, our chronic absenteeism went from red to orange, so our chronic absenteeism rate did decline. And a change in that was we went from That chronic absenteeism last year, it wasn't on the dashboard, but they gave us data on chronic absenteeism, and that number was K through 12, included all students in K through 12. The chronic absenteeism now is K through 8. They changed that metric. Our suspension rates last year were red as well, so that's improved to orange, which is good. We were green before, and we're green again in grad rate, so we either maintained for most of our schools. I think South Valley's increased, and there is a new calculation for the way South Valley's grad rate is calculated, and I'll go over that later in detail because it's a little complicated. And then this was new, the college and career indicator. And then just like we had shared with you before, our SBAC data was flat. And so the reason we're in orange is we're kind of at the same level. We haven't really moved. We were 34% in English language arts and I think 21% in math. So the way to navigate this, if you want some more information, you can look at our student population. This shows our enrollment, our socioeconomically disadvantaged, our percentage of EL learners, and our foster youth. And they post those because those are the 4 groups that are highlighted in the unduplicated pupil count. And we do have a high foster youth percentage when you look at the other districts. So does Humboldt County has pretty high. I was looking around. And then some of our schools have higher rates than the 1.5 percentage. So if you go down, you can see then it gives a little more detail. What's nice is that here's the English language arts. You can look at all students for Ukiah Unified. This shows what the status is. So what did we score at in terms of their benchmarking? And what that's showing is that we're on average scoring 40.9 percentage points below students meeting standard. And so there's, I'm sorry, not percentage points, scaled score points.
How many points are in the scale?
It depends.
Well, then the 40 is kind of a silly thing
Yeah,
to put on your graph.
it depends, but it's calculated for each individual student, and then they put it together in one large calculation. But if you look, so that just this point is, here's your status, kind of how did you do as a district, and then the number down here is looking at what change you had. So remember those 2 components, looking at the status and change, and so you can see that we were flat, we maintained. And if you look over at mathematics, we were 73.4 points below, and you can see we maintained because that was a pretty small change there. And then if you, go ahead. Oh, thank you. If you then, this will allow you to get more information. You can look at how many student groups are in this is considered the equity report, how many student groups are in each of the different levels. And you can look at that ELA, all our student groups were in orange. And then in mathematics, you can see we had some student groups in red, orange, and yellow. And so if you wanted to look at that detail, you know, a little more detailed, and you can go down and look at those groups. So we can see that our Native American and English learner students for math were in red, and then these other groups were orange, and then we had 2 groups homeless, and more than one race were yellow. So that way you can look at it in a little more detail. And then if you want even more detail, you can look at how did the subgroup do in both its status and its change, and you can also see the number of students in that group. And then if you wanted to see the orange, you would click on this and you can see the students in orange. Also, you can always toggle between the state and the district. So this is showing the student group for Ukiah Unified, and this is showing the student group for the state and how the state scores are. So that's how that's set up. And once you go into this level, then you can navigate over here on the left-hand side, and you can find more information out that way. So that's a component of the dashboard. And then if you scroll back up, you can, let me hit, oh, sorry. You can go back to overview. And then if you wanted to view all the schools, you can click on this view all schools. And then it's going to show you the district's dashboard and then each of the schools as we go down. And then you'll see if it's kind of grayed out, that means that either it doesn't pertain, it usually means it doesn't pertain to that site. Every once in a while it can be a subgroup issue, but it just means that, you know, grad rate doesn't pertain to Calpella. And on the English learner progress, the reason there's no report is we have a new assessment, the LPAC, and we just started that last year. So we have to have 2 years of data to be able to compare on the dashboard. So right now that's gray, but you can get some information on how the students did last year. And then if you want more detail, you click on that more detail and you can find out more detail about the school, and then it just breaks down each of the schools. And then this is how the EL progress is being reported right now because it's just 1 year of data. If you're wondering what does the orange mean, how did someone get there? If you go back to this page, and we'll make sure you have this link, because I think I didn't put this one in the board packet, I just put this one.
You just put the faster one, yeah.
Yeah. If you go here, though, and let's say you were really curious about, well, what does that orange mean? These are the 5x5 grids that the state uses to assign the different levels. And if you type Ukiah and go to Ukiah Unified District, and let's say we wanted to look at our chronic absenteeism, and that one's selected, we could look at that and hit submit, and we can see where our different schools fall. And so you can see like Grace Hudson here, this means that their chronic absenteeism fell between 5 and 10%, and that they maintained from their prior year. And so that helps you think about where they were falling for that year. And then you can go and look at, like if we were looking at mathematics, we can see that. And I'm not sure why they're not showing the different levels there, and I've been trying to find that again. I have not had success. But the achievement was considered low, and then, you know, you can see that it was considered that we maintained, and that's how that component works. And then lastly, there is one more report. The participation rate I read about more today. If a subgroup is under the 95% participation rate, that does lower your rating. It didn't say exactly how. I don't have all that detail in a couple of the specific indicators. So you on ELA and math. So you want to make sure you have that 95%. And then lastly, the student group report. This allows you to see all the student groups and the key indicators. And for us to also look at where, if we are in district assistance, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but if in these groups, if we have 2 or more red in a subgroup, that can put us into district assistance. And this year, unfortunately, we're in district assistance again for 2 different groups than we were last year, for foster youth and Native American. So that is how you can also kind of take a bigger look at how the groups are falling across the district. So there's two places for information, the regular dashboard and then what we call the 5x5 grids that give us information.
That was just a quick overview. You can play with it over the holidays if you'd like.
Oh,
and
yes.
just kind of dig into the data, but we'll be spending some more time on that. And we can talk in January just about what differentiated assistance means, because we're now in year 2 of that. So our county office has been working with us.
Thank Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Item E2, I'm sorry, E1, didn't want to skip the first interim budget.
Most exciting part of the evening. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Cuban. I'm glad to present the first interim budget report for this year. And I'll zip through this standard layout. This is an agenda of everything we're going to be going through, and I think we'll just get started and go through it. Our ever popular budget and LCAP reporting cycle. I get teased about this now. We're at the first interim of this year. All the blue indicates the reports that happened this year. Yellow is when we closed the books for last year. The green is information for next year, which in January we'll attend the governor's budget proposal workshop put on every year by school services to hear what's in store for then. But right now we're focused on this year, the difference between when we adopted the budget in June to now. And so this is what happens basically that derives the changes. We close the books, so then we get actual ending fund balances and program carryovers. We identify any budget adjustments that need to be made, specifically the staffing that we estimated when we adopted the budget. We do a lot of hiring over the summer, and so then we can very, very accurately adjust the budget for the true costs for staffing. We create a new multi-year projection that the County Office of Education, who has budget oversight for us, for all school districts, and the state will look at to determine our financial condition. And then we will certify our financial condition, which is positive. This is an overview of the major changes. I don't usually do this. Well, I guess I do, but it maybe looks a little more wordy this time. But basically, we have a big increase in our local control funding formula amount, mainly due to when we adopted the budget, the current information was that the COLA would be 3%. The governor, as one of his parting hoorays for education, adjusted the COLA up to 3.7%, which will be ongoing money, which is very good for us. At the same time, in doing that, they reduced our one-time revenue that was in the adopted budget by about $900,000, from 1.8 down to 900 almost. So, but that's okay, I guess, because it's one time. And we'll take the ongoing increase over the one time. So then we just also transfer back and forth to balance our general fund. And when we do that, we establish whatever level the reserve level of Fund 17 is. The expenditures that increased were mainly due to our negotiated salary increase based on our MOU, the second of 2 years, the MOU with UTA. And we subsequently allocated that to all of our UUSD contracted employees, which you guys approved in November through the AB 1200 public disclosure. We adjusted materials and supplies, contracts and services, especially because of the additional supplemental concentration grant funds. And we usually put those into that fund or object 4314 as a placeholder until you approve where they're to be spent. Our contributions from unrestricted to restricted, the main change there was the increase in our special ed program, mainly due to the salary increase, because we have a lot of millions of dollars of salaries in special ed. So this is the standard unrestricted general fund summary. And you'll see at the top the total revenues, and that difference of only $40,000 is somewhat deceiving because we have the big increase in LCFF, but remember, there was a big decrease in the one-time funds. That's why it doesn't look like it was that much more money. But then you see the increase in expenditures. I have more detail on all of this. This is just a summary. So the main focus of this slide would be to let you know that that $929,000 in one-time funds that we're to receive this year is part of our ending fund balance, where the green section is pointing to. And you can see right next to that 929 number, the 1.8 was the amount that we thought we were going to get at adopted. And then also, I know the board's always interested in the reserve percentage, as the reserve is a percentage of our combined budget, what we keep in Fund 17. And we started adopted at 8.83, and we're projecting now 8.46 for this year. So this is the details of the change in the local control funding formula. You'll see the first section is the current year, and you kind of in the middle there, the difference, the top number on the difference column is the 710,000, and then in the blue you'll see that specifically supplemental concentration is the $379,000 change. And then I went ahead and added the 2 out years because we have that information. You can see that the amounts do increase each year, and we're very happy for that. The very, very slight change in ADA, which is, one of the main calculating factors for the LCFF, just due to an adjustment to our P2. We have decreased slightly in enrollment by about 20. We didn't necessarily feel it significant enough to change the out-year ADA projections, so we maintain the same ADA looking at the next 2 out years, just for your information. Here's kind of a look at the change in revenue overall. If you remember, it was that little $40,000 amount, but as you can see, the LCFF increased to 710, and then the big decrease in the mandated cost, and then the rest are just, increases. Then we get into, that was revenues. Now we're going to discuss the changes in the expenses. Our objects 1s, 2s, and 3s are our salary and benefits for our certificated and classified employees, plus the benefits. We started the year with 4 certificated reserve, which is our standard budget reserve to protect us, because our students don't all come in the nice classroom-sized packages, and sometimes we have to add a teacher, or if we were increasing, we would be adding a teacher. We've used 1 teacher of the 4, so we reduced 3, and then ongoing, we have projected just 2, because we do seem to be flattening on our enrollment, where we had been increasing over the years. So we projected the 2 on that 2 out years. I put in here the STRS on behalf. You guys, I don't know if I need to explain that again. It just, it's an offsetting amount that we have to put in the revenue and the expenditure, because it's based on what would be our district's share of the statewide underfunded STRS pension. So they really make every district do this. What it ends up doing basically is it inflates our reserve requirement just a little bit, 214,000, because the reserve's based on the amount of expenditures. So overall, salary benefits increased 345. So here's a whole bunch of detail on our 4,000s and 5,000s, which are our material and supplies budgets and the operating expenses and other services. I gave like an overview amount on the left, and then the real detail is over on the right-hand side. Nothing spectacular, just like to be very transparent and let you guys know. You can see the SCGs noted there, and nothing too spectacular. Capital outlay, we did have an increase because we had a school bus engine replacement, and anything that is a $5,000 equipment or more is required to be in this particular capital outlay area. The others are just adjustments in indirect costs. So the total increase in our expenditures from budget adoption to first interim was almost $800,000. So this is that, we always talk about the revenues, the expenditures, and then the change like in the fund balance because we had closed the books, then contributions and transfers. This is that piece. And you'll recall when we closed the books, we showed you the increase in the fund balance. We always have that, those unspent funds that when we close the books, we have, that little bit of extra, and it was $646,000, that top number on the increase decrease column up there. And then the rest of it are the restricted programs. That middle section are all the restricted programs that have more expense than revenue to them, and therefore we contribute from the unrestricted side of the budget to balance them because every fund has to balance. And so the difference is there on the right, and you'll see again the big piece is the special education with almost $500,000 of that $506,000 change, and mostly due to the salary increase that their employees very much deserve. Transfers in and out from the general fund, that's how we keep the general fund without any unallocated ending balance. And so all of our reserve then stays in Fund 17 to make it really easy to see. And there's ins and outs and a little bit to cafeteria at adoption that was removed at first interim because our cafeteria fund is going to look good this year. That's one real highlight because our universal meal program is going gangbusters, and the reimbursement for it is going to outweigh the expense, which is always good. So hopefully we'll get to replace some equipment in the cafeteria. Multi-year projection, all important. I kind of highlight that transfer in. You can see the 3 columns, current year and the next 2 out years that are projected. And I have to remind everyone, we make these projections based on what we know right now. Tomorrow it will probably change, or especially in January when the governor's budget proposal comes out. But so it's a moment in time that we look at. And these are the details of revenues and expenditures, other financing. And so over here, this is the components of the ending fund balance and all of that good stuff. The bottom line is you see the fairly significant decrease in our ending fund balance reserve percentage. So that's what we have been talking about with our budget reduction discussions and analysis. And so this is really what it boils down to at this time. Fund 17, we have the requirement for a 9% reserve. So the amount that multi-year projection shows would be the shortfall next year, if we don't make any changes before then, would be the 1.16 million. Huge number. We do have a big budget, but, and just as a reminder, as much to the public, I know the board has heard it many times, but the structural deficit that we're experiencing has been building mainly due to our continuous pension cost increases, our special education program cost increases coupled with the special education program revenue decreases. So it's that's where why we're experiencing the structural budget deficit that we are. But I think also it's very important, this last section on this slide, very important to understand that if there's any savings we can realize this year, it would reduce the amount of reductions needed for next year and ongoing. Because just for an example, say we had a $500,000 savings this year, well, we count it this year and next year, which is $1 million in savings. So we could take that $1 million, if we could do that, and reduce it down to $116,000. So that's that, and I don't mean to just gloss over it, but I know we have other discussion coming, so I'm going to keep going. And I do want to Usually we have a separate agenda item for one-time funds, but really all we're doing right here, I'm just wanting you to understand we have this $929,000 one-time. It's assigned as part of our ending fund balance, and you guys have not approved it to be spent anywhere, so right now it's sitting there. There are, always needs, and, Sure.
So that 929, I feel like in other charts you had it filling the whole of Fund 17, or is that in addition to?
No, it's just separate. It's sitting up there as assigned, but it's not up in the expenses. It's in the revenue, but it's not in the expenses, so we have to assign it as part of the ending fund balance. And it just carries forward until it gets moved up to expenses when you determine how it's to be spent.
Okay.
So
it's
it is
not-
separate. It's not part of the Fund 17.
Okay.
Okay, and it is just, because once it's gone, no more. But then, of course, as I typically would note, that we do have our unfunded facility needs and usually some unfunded textbook needs as well. I have a couple of wordy slides, but I felt like I wanted to explain something that hasn't been specifically brought to your attention before. But in a more general way, we talk about special education expense increases and revenue reductions, but here's the reason why, and I think it's important, so I'm just going to zip through it. Our SELPA uses an allocation model that includes a pool to cover the cost of students who are placed in non-public schools. These placements are typically really expensive, ranging from about $60,000 a year to maybe over $150,000 per student per year. In the past, the SELPA would cover these costs 100% for all school districts in the county. In the past couple of years, the number of non-public school placements has increased to the point that our SELPA is using the pool they have set aside for that, plus reserve funds to pay for these costs. This has created a structural deficit in the SELPA budget. Last year, each district received an 8% reduction in SELPA funds, and that's on an ongoing basis. These additional costs were built into our budget with an additional $120,000 for each of the 2 out years for our multi-year projection too, because this is not likely to be something to go away in the near future. Our SELPA continues to deficit spend using reserve funds to pay for these MPS placements. And in the near future, the SELPA reserves will be at zero, which means the districts in the county will receive reduced allocations and/or increased expenses, whichever way they want to account for it. Yes, Tyler?
On the bullet point number 3, the first year, or last year, I'm sorry, it was an 8% reduction. Then you said in the 2 following years, which was $400,000. In the 2 following years, you only estimated that's going to be a $120,000 reduction?
Well, right.
Additional reduction.
Right, because we see it growing. So it's just a placeholder, and without getting any firm numbers from our SELPA, which is what we're working on now, because it's the reserves are shrinking quickly for the SELPA. So our SELPAs are not legally required to provide multi-year projections, but we're working with them to provide one for planning purposes, which Superintendent Cuban had said we'll have in January. And that's because partially too that School Services of California is doing an analysis of our SELPA, the programs and the allocation model, and they will provide their recommendations in January to the Superintendent's Policy Council. So we should be planning for additional substantial revenue reductions and/or cost increases beyond the amount in our current projection. So unfortunately, this adds to the $1.16 million. We don't know exactly how much yet, but it could be that we have heard from them that it could be up to another 8%. An estimate of the additional allocation that is going to be in January, so I already said that. So that's kind of the reason, just in a nutshell, of what's happening with the SELPA and the special education piece and why the costs are going up so much. So moving right along, the other contingency is our minimum wage increase that we're really pleased to have provided the 3.75% to classified staff, and it helped the salary schedule because you can see here incrementally the state is requiring an increase to the $15 per hour for everyone by January 1st of 2022. And right now, with what we've been able to provide for CSEA, or for classified, we are good with our current salary schedule until January 1st, 2021. So we've got a couple of years to do some more work and planning on that. The pension costs, it's like unbelievable. This is the percentage each year for PERS on top, and then STIRS is the second set of figures. Next year, we'll be paying almost 21% for every dollar of classified, and we'll be paying 18 cents for every dollar of certificated. The difference from when we close the books to what's in our budget currently is actually $1.6 million of an increase on our pension costs. So it is significant, therefore structural budget deficit. I like to let you keep in everybody's mind our unfunded facility needs, not because it's unfunded, but because we have, a lot of facility needs. We do have our 5-year deferred maintenance and capital improvement plan that was just approved. We have projects going. It's not like everything's at a standstill, but this is what our facility master plan that was completed just last year indicated was where we stand with our facility needs. So I always need to show you the other funds of the district. As we all know, our main operating activities are out of our general fund. Each of these other funds are for the very specific purpose that that they're legally set up for and can only be used in that manner. The changes in our capital facilities and county school facilities funds are due to projects, and we are working on the South Valley site improvement to determine what the instructional needs are to move forward there. The others are for some roofing projects scheduled for next summer. So then brings us right along to the next steps, and that's the governor's budget proposal in January. I'll be attending that. We'll be determining our staffing needs. Nicole will work on enrollment projections for next year. By February, we really need to kind of firm up and have you approve any budget reductions so that we can build that in. We're starting, right away into budget development for next year, as unbelievable as it sounds. Second interim, we take the picture as of January 31st and present it to you in March. And that is it. We recommend a positive certification.
I move to recommend the approval of the first interim budget.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Gail had a question.
I'm just wondering, I know that the state has an enormous surplus. There have been multiple articles about it. And is there any organized effort on the part of school district superintendents to put pressure on the governor to increase the amount for schools? I mean, one of the things that keeps coming up is the enormous deficit due to both the pension costs and all of the accrued maintenance that started back in 2008. I did read that he apparently has given up his idea of universal preschool, which I think is...
Already?
Yeah.
Before he's even close to being in office?
Well, he just said that, what, it would really
Expense.
take a lot of years, and we don't really know how we do it.
Yeah, I think too the enormous expense of that, but I have not heard. And I'm curious to see what the in January with the proposal, governor's budget proposal. Although Governor Brown did give us the 3.7 COLA for this year.
But I mean, are we contacting any politician? You know, is there?
I know that the Association of California School Administrators and CSEA are working on trying to get the state to increase the per pupil allocation to districts. It's one of the goals. So, and there was some legislation last year that did not go through. I think they plan to propose it again. So.
I know one of the main focuses of the legislature is to cover the Medi-Cal costs for all people in California, and that apparently will wipe out pretty much everything.
I've also heard that the rainy day fund would maybe fund 1 year if we have the beginning of a recession again. So kind of want them to keep that.
And Gail, I think we'll hear more in January when
Yes.
Penny goes to school services
Yeah.
and I go to our state superintendents.
Okay.
We did hear some at the CSBA conference. They had a panel at the very end. And they were talking about, you know, just thinking about what the new governor might do. So.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Megan, do you still have a question?
I think it's better for the next time.
All right. There is a legislative action day that CSBA is hosting, Gail. That would be a good time to rant and rave about this kind of stuff if you'd like to join me. It's in March. I can't remember the exact date.
That was another thing from the panel at the end was you have to be very active in talking to your legislators.
Thank you, Penny.
You're welcome.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. There's a first motion and a second to accept the first interim budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for that. Item E2, update on the budget reduction revenue enhancements for 2019-20 budget year. You're back on the hot seat.
Okay. Do you have that one? I've worked on it so much, I think it should be
And before
automatically
Penny
there.
starts, I think I think our challenge right now is trying to figure out what our SELPA reduction is going to be for next year. Just when we think we might be close to solving our budget problem, we get news like that. I was given that news last Friday that we'll likely have an additional reduction to our SELPA allocation, and we won't know until January.
It's Thursday, Superintendent Cumin. I find it hard to believe you have not resolved that issue in an entire 6 days.
So we will, that's what the hard part about the timing of all of this is that factor. So, we have calculated what we think is a worst-case scenario. I can't imagine it being worse than an additional 8%. But we know what that dollar amount is. But it makes things really hard in terms of our timing of moving forward with recommendations and doing our usual stakeholder input process. So we're probably looking more like February for final decisions from the board. We are going to recommend that we flip-flop and I know Trustee Mulgard asked for the board calendar to be talked about again. We're going to recommend that we flip-flop our board workshop and our regular board meeting in January so that we'll have that number for the board at a January meeting, and we don't have to delay everything till February, so we'll get to that in a moment. But with that, and I'll just do a quick overview and then
Sure.
Penny can jump in, but we did ask our staff for new ideas. We sent out all of the lists from last year just so they could have a basis for what was brought forward last year. We had a lot of the same ideas from last year, and we had a few new ones. And so we've added those, and Penny can talk about how those spreadsheets work.
Okay.
And
So, Juan, let's start with the unrestricted, no negotiations required. Okay, so this is our list of ideas for budget reductions effective 1920, or sooner if possible, frequently not possible, but the blue indicates a new idea generated this year. The green indicates an idea generated last year that was actually implemented. So we have a total at the bottom of that 17, 18 column that was the total amount that we were able to save coming into this year. I don't know if we want to talk about and go through each of the new ones. I'm not sure how we wanted to work it.
Really what we're doing is we're just asking for clarifying questions from the board and any ideas that the board might have. So that's really all that we're doing. These are draft lists. They haven't really been vetted, so I just wanted to say that. I sent a communication out to the staff today that talked about that, we were talking about the budget tonight, and that these are just draft lists that were generated. Just anytime you put a list out, people get very concerned. I totally understand. This particular list is last year's list, plus some new ideas that were brought forward. So, and we've put them in the same categories. And, the challenging part, I think, for staff, and Penny and I, and thank you to Doug, did a quick little budget video about the budget, because our problem is the unrestricted general fund. It's not in supplemental concentration grant funds, which we're getting more money. It's, and we also have legally restricted things that we have to do. People put forward an idea that we're legally required, like a new example was eliminate the community transition program. We're legally required to educate special education students until the age of 22, so we couldn't consider that as a reduction. So the different lists are categorized in that way still, as we did last year.
And so that's why I went to this one first, because this is the unrestricted side of the budget ideas that are not negotiable nor required by law. So these are, while some of them would be maybe something you would never consider, in being transparent, we wanted to list them and then provide you the cost on the right-hand side, far right-hand side column would be the savings as of now.
Are there any clarifying questions, like what is this or that? And then we'll take any recommendations or new ideas the board wants us to consider and cost out.
Megan?
I don't actually have clarifying questions right now.
Okay.
I don't have a comment.
Do you want to just throw that out there?
I'm happy to wait for the clarifying questions first.
It's okay. Go for it.
Okay, so well, two thoughts, but let me do them in order. I appreciate this list and the effort to be transparent. As a board member, it's difficult to work with because, as you stated, there's ideas here you would never consider, and there's other ones that I am in no position to evaluate whether that's a terrible idea or a really great idea without further information. So it becomes helpful. I mean, I understand the point of being really transparent, but at this point, I don't think, I think it's served its purpose, and I'm hoping that the next time we have the budget reduction conversation, we get a curated list. I mean, a better word, that's more evaluated by those of you who are in a position to evaluate them well, which would not necessarily be me. So that's just one comment. The other thought I have is, as you pointed out in your last presentation, our funding issues, a certain significant portion of them right now are related to special ed. And I understand it's about a loss of funds from SELPA and an increase in expenses, but for me as a board member, I always look at those large money, that large pool of money, and it's like, okay, that's necessary for special ed. And I don't feel like we really look deeply at how efficient our special ed program is. And I'm just wondering if that's the time to do it. Because the pressure on the budget is around special ed, I want to make sure we're looking closely at our expenditures to make sure there's not some cost savings there that would make sense. And that's an area that I feel completely unequipped to know what makes sense and what doesn't. And I'm very sensitive to it because it's some of our most vulnerable students. So I do not feel prepared to know what a good reduction idea is around special ed and what might be a bad idea. So I'm really counting on you to give us that feedback. But I do feel like we have overlooked special ed as a place to consider
Mhm.
either
Mhm.
revenue enhancement or expenditure reductions. That was my general comment.
Thank you.
Gail?
I agree with Megan on the special ed, and we did a study a little while ago because that had been raised as an issue, that our program was very heavily aid impacted. And, you know, once again, it's one of those situations where everybody knows what the ideal is, but the ideal isn't always something we can afford. And so I would like more information on that as well, and what we have done, if anything. The other issue on the furniture issue, number 6, it's hard for me when you lump safety with plain furniture and vehicles. So, I mean, if we had to eliminate some of that, I would want to know what safety factors were involved in that category of those 3.
Okay.
And those were my questions.
Thank you, Gail. Ann?
I concur with Trustee Van Sant in terms of a curated list for a couple reasons. One is that it strikes fear in the heart of any program that is listed, and I think it causes unnecessary anxiety. And so we started to talk about this, Superintendent Cuban. It's a balance. How do we give all the information and put all the cards on the table without causing so much anxiety? So anyway, I don't think we're there yet, but I'm certainly willing to engage in conversation to move us there forward. In terms of revenue, I'd like us to look at trash and recycling. Originally, back in the day, before you were even here, Penny, we didn't pay anything for trash.
I know.
It was
I remember.
those were the days.
Mhm.
But then they changed, the city of Ukiah changed the contract, and now we're paying. So I'd like to see, back from the time we were paying 0, which was probably 5 to 7 years ago,
Mhm.
to today, I'd like to see what those numbers are.
Mhm.
And then I'd like to see both the leadership group and/or the environmental club and/or a couple kids from Independent Study, UISA, are all talking about this, are we maximizing our recycling? And so I think that's been brought up in other places, and maybe that's just something that you can send us. Maybe it doesn't need to be a big discussion, I don't know. But I think that's an issue that deserves some attention.
Okay.
The other thing that when we were meeting with UISA, and I know that that's a much bigger conversation, but one thing they mentioned was that they had more capacity to bring in more students, and they had so many students, just like the Eagle Peak slide that showed how many students from outside the district they were bringing in. They had so many that they were bringing in that I think that with some improved and professional communications, they could probably bring in even more students. So just to give you an example, I know of a young lady who studied abroad and was this close to taking the GED in order to finish her high school career, and instead met with the people at UISA and is doing a hybrid program now. So just, you know, there's probably a lot more in there that we could be looking for those students who are really marginalized and disengaged without too much expense. We could turn quite a few around. And now that the per pupil is so high, I mean, 10 students makes a huge difference to a school or a
True.
program or whatever you want to call it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zoe?
I was wondering a couple things. How come UISA's on here twice as number 9 and number 10 as a new idea and as an old idea? That looks like the same idea.
I believe it's because the cost for currently is the cost on the far right. It was an idea from last year with the expense number of 84,000. The cost currently would be, savings would be 61,000.
Didn't we
Probably
do-
need to combine it, though, because we did some
Right.
reductions there. So we'll figure out how to represent that better.
There should be some green there. I agree about the curated list, because I find this list overwhelming and not very user-friendly for us, because we don't really know what's what. And I'm wondering, when you take this to the different groups, are you taking a curated list to them, or are you taking this list to them? Because it it would be nice if maybe the list was gone through before it was presented to various groups. I don't know how useful this list would be to them if it's not useful to us, or maybe it would be.
Last year to get this list, I mean, the master list probably had 250 ideas on it. And so we had a working group, a technical budget working group, to cull through that list of 200 ideas to see which ones were, you know, proposals or via, from last year, it was. And so there was a budget working group. We could convene a smaller working group to go through it.
It just seems like it's, there's a lot of things on here, and it's hard to know if something is a good idea or if something isn't a good idea. And I certainly don't feel like I'm in a position to know that. So for when it comes back, I'm going to rely heavily on administration's recommendations and knowledge that I would like to know ahead of time, not, you know, as part of the document, what you all feel are the best areas to cut. So that, not like, you know, here they are, take these and that's it, but so that we have a little guidance.
Thank you, Zoe. B?
I, like my fellow board members, am overwhelmed by this whole deal. But at the same time, I do appreciate having this list in the sense that quite often when we talk with people or they talk with us, they say, well, you could be doing this. Well, you could be doing that. I now have a list I can look and say, well, you know what? It's in here, and that's an interesting point of view. And so I see that someone has thought about it, and it's not like it's being hidden. So from that perspective, I'm glad to have it. But when I'm going to really think about it and vote on it, I do want a condensed version because it is overwhelming.
All right. Are there any more questions about items on the list or additions? Okay. Seeing none, thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
I give some additions. Not to cut it.
Item E3, district's initial proposal for 2019-2020 negotiations with CSEA, Chapter 194.
And I won't read the entire narrative in our sunshine list, just the articles that the district is sunshining. Article 2 regarding recognition. Article 5, payroll deductions for CSEA dues and organizational security. Article 8.9, hours of employment and overtime compensation driving assignments outside regular contract routes. Article 8.10D, hours of employment and overtime compensation, additional provisions for bus drivers in selection of routes. And Article 13.4, and I'm sorry, in my own list, I did not write what that article is regarding. Oh, yes, that is regarding continuing differential pay as it is now with a 50%.
Isn't it the district and SE? No, I'm on the wrong one.
It's regarding the deduction for differential pay, and that's to continue what we're currently doing, but we have an expiration on an MOU that we want to continue.
Okay, great. I move approval.
Is a motion for approval?
I second it.
Glad you guys know what you're doing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E4, acceptance of initial proposal for 2019-2020 negotiations by the CSEA.
There's definitely some overlap here. They are sunshining Article 5, payroll deductions for CSEA dues and organizational security. 8.9, driving assignments outside of regular contract routes. Article 9, compensation and salary adjustments. Article 10, benefits. Article 8.10, additional provisions for drivers and selection of routes. Article 13.1, absence resulting from acts of God, and Article 26, the term. And I didn't state in the last one, but I should for this one, that both of these are sunshining for the 1920 school year, and I just want to commend the good work that CSEA and the negotiations teams have done to really get us ahead of the game in negotiations. So we are sunshining for the 1920 school year.
Good job.
Very cool. Is there a motion to accept the initial proposals by our CSEA?
I move acceptance of the initial proposal for 1920 by CSEA.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We have a whole bunch of first readings, E5 through E15.
I was hoping our new chair could walk through each one individually.
All right.
Because
We're
we
gonna
have a lot of questions.
We'll be having a study session after the meeting. Anne, bring the coffee. Megan, a comment or a question?
I do, are you entertaining comments and questions on all of them right now?
Yeah, on all of them, and then we'll just consider that the first reading.
And so I do have a comment or question on one of them. I'm curious about the two policies that both appear to address the ability to commingle all 4-year-olds enrolled in state preschool with our TK. Well, I think it's
one is 9 and one is 13.
So what I think this is saying, and this is where I'm asking you to correct me if I'm wrong, that 4-year-olds of any age who are enrolled in state preschool are also now allowed to be in our TK classrooms? Is that correct?
We could do that if we wanted to. We're not required to, though.
So I guess what I'm thinking is effectively that opens up our TK classroom to all 4-year-olds.
It could. We would have to do some things to make that possible. So I was looking at the ed code on that. It looks like to me that all of our classrooms would have to comply with preschool rules on health and safety. And then in addition, that the student to staff ratio would have, if I read it correctly, because it said student to adult ratio, not student to teacher ratio, that the student to adult ratio would have to be 1 to 8, like the preschool. So I think we'll do some more research.
Yeah.
But to me, what it looked like was it gave the option if you wanted to have, basically, to me, I almost see it the other way. You want to have.
You could put some TKs in preschool.
In preschool. And so, but to do that, we'd have to fall under most of the guidelines of preschool. Also, we couldn't have students that are potentially, like, let's say, in a second year of TK, meaning the students have to be in that younger range. So I think the policy there, I mean, when I looked at it and read it, and I did look on the CDE and tried to get information, there was not a lot of information on it. But that, if you needed to, you had the option to do that. And I could see that need arising in different situations, especially small schools, where they may have 1 or 2 TK students that they want to commingle with preschool.
That's what you think was the intention?
I think so, and we will, in between the next meeting and now, we'll get some more information on that. I wanted to contact MCOE as well, to see if they have any other information on it. But it looked like the staffing ratio would have to fall under the guidelines of preschool, which would be very costly.
Okay, I guess if it turns out that, once you do more research, it is, you're wrong, let's say, and it actually would open up our TK classrooms to all 4-year-olds, I'd like to have that discussion, because I've felt that the TK eligibility criteria has always been a little bit odd. And if we as a district were allowed to prioritize which 4-year-olds need an extra year of TK, I'm not sure we would choose the oldest 4-year-olds. We might choose a different method. So if there's an opportunity for that, and I understand this is a long transition, it may take a long time, but I'd really like to understand what our options are there, because I'm not sure we're not serving our neediest kids as well as we could if we'd had more flexibility about which kids can be in TK.
Yeah, we will definitely do some more research on that.
But if you're right and it's really, then that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Gail?
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting and very perplexing, because at one point they say that you could suspend some of the licensure and regulations, which means the adult ratio might be able to be different. But on the other hand, I thought it might even give us some opportunities. For example, because the next one about TK talks about how you're supposed to have a modified program, and we know that in several of the schools, it's very impossible to do that with a regular kindergarten. And the clustering of TKs is an issue that we've been dealing with. Do you put them all in one class, or do you split them up? And one of the arguments is that you don't have enough for a full class. But then if you could add additional preschool students, but the preschool students would have to be a certain age, Megan, because they would have to be eligible, yeah. Then I think there might be some, I guess I'm feeling that, and I didn't even want to ask all these questions because you have so much to do, but I'd hate to pass a policy at the next board meeting without enough information and then have to change it or consider changing it later. So I'm wondering if it's something we would want to put more time into.
Yeah, we will definitely do more research and get back to you before January so you have some background.
Okay.
All right, seeing no more highlighters, that concludes the first reading. We are now at student expulsions. Oh, no, we're not.
Board President Nelson, I had one other question.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah,
On E13, when it talks about, I mean, I think that my concern was there's a lot of information in here, and I'm reluctant again to bring it up because I know it means more work. But when it talked about the board should get a report of the progress of TKs after the TK classes, and I don't remember getting any kind of report like that. In other words, finding out if TK is really helping these kids in kindergarten. And it's a very interesting question, but it would take more time. But I just wanted to point out that I don't think we get that on a routine basis.
And if it already exists, then it's just a matter of copying us, so that's great. Something exists.
And the other one was back to E9, was that there should be a community-wide plan to increase access to preschool. But again, I realize that when I've talked about doing this, which I think is an important thing, you have the issue of space. And so once again, the legislature has come up with these wonderful ideas without offering you $400,000 to buy a building. But I thought about it in terms of if we are thinking eventually about doing a bond, that might be something we might want to consider including, would be to have a preschool classroom on a campus.
Thank you. All right, moving on to, I jumped the gun a little earlier, we're superintendent's report, F1.
I only have about 20 things to talk about, so I think I'll save it and just say that I hope everybody has a happy holiday, and I really appreciate the board's support of our district and me and our staff for everything that they do. And with that, I'll save it for my Friday communication that you will get tomorrow.
Any board reports?
I just wanted to say one thing. Having visited Pomalita and being escorted by Mr. Barrett, and Eagle Peak being escorted by Mr. Stearns, I guess I know the educational programs are incredibly exciting, but what impressed me so much and what made me so grateful is the personal attachment both of those principals had to their students, the information they knew about students who were in trouble, the support the fact that they anticipate kids needing support, the just incredible compassion. It was just so overwhelmingly satisfying for me to see. So I just think we sometimes forget that part of their job.
Thank you, Gail. It's nice to hear. All right, no more board reports. Let's move on to expulsions and admissions. So let's start out with the good news first. Is there a motion to readmit student AA 1213-2018?
I so move.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to deny student BB 12-13-2018 readmission through the spring semester of 2019?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to readmit student CC 12-13-2018?
I so move.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to readmit student DD 12-13-2018?
I so move.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Student expulsions. Is there a motion to suspend the expulsion of student AA 12-13-2018 for the fall semester of 2018 and for the spring semester 2018 school year?
It's
I'm
19.
sorry, 2018-19 school year.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to suspend the expulsion of student BB 12-13-2018 for the fall semester of 2018 and for the spring semester of the 2018-19 school year?
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to suspend the expulsion of student CC 12-13-2018 for the fall semester of 2018 and for the spring semester of the 2018-19 school year?
I so move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to suspend student, is there a motion to suspend the expulsion of student DD 12-13-2018 for the fall semester of 2018 and for the spring semester of 2018-19 school year?
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Finally, is there a motion to suspend the expulsion of student EE 12-13-2018 for the fall semester of 2018 for the spring semester of 2018-19 school year?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Thank you. Okay, Ann, you asked us to go back to A7.
Yes, I move we now reconsider our action relative to agenda item A7, because that is what Robert's Rules of Order tells me to do.
Okay.
And to amend the board agenda calendar as presented, amending just one item, moving the January 17th meeting to January 24th, which is actually the fourth Thursday of the month in January, so that we can have more SELPA information in order to make better budget decisions. And then while it's not on that calendar, just for our reference, the workshop we had planned on January 24th, we would move to the now available date of January 17th. So it's A7 as presented, except January 17th turns into January 24th.
Is January 17th with Steve Zweiback?
I'm meeting with him this week or next week, I think, and we'll be talking about that. Likely, yes.
And so if he's not available that date, then we would switch it? The
We have
17th?
several things to do, and we're going on our visits in January, so I need to think about that a little bit more. If you would like him on that date, we can do that. Let me meet with him and I'll get back to you.
Do you need a motion to?
I just moved that.
Second?
All right, so that was a motion by Ann, a second by Zoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We didn't pull anything from consent. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so move.
Second.
All All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good, that passes, planning.
So Deb, does that change time?
Yes.
To when?
It will now be Wednesday, January 16th. At noon?
Is that going to be on the visits?
We'll be back.
I'm available on the 16th.
I think I am.
I haven't done it in a long time. I'm happy to, I think I'm happy to do it. I think I'm not. So somebody else, I'll let somebody else do it. I guess if nobody else is willing, I can do it, I think.
No, Gail said she was available. I thought Gail said she was available.
I mean, almost all the rest of my month is trash, so I mean, you may as well.
Are you available, Gail?
Yeah, I think I am.
Okay.
But you did it this
Oh,
time?
oh, she did, okay.
Oh, okay. You did this last time, Gail?
I did.
Did you be?
Oh, then we need somebody else.
You want to go ahead?
do it?
Well, yes, but Megan wants to do it.
No, I actually don't want to do it. I'll do it next month.
All right, so it's B and Ann and myself. Thank you, B.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't think we didn't want to duplicate. I just think that people do it whenever they can, and if you
Yeah.
do two in
All
a
right,
row.
meeting's adjourned. Thank you guys for tolerating